In our today's class, we are going with the challenges of international business. Challenges of international business primarily come from the differences in the two markets. Like as you see, when two cultures are involved, many languages being involved, then people from different community being involved in the business. Then at the same time, there can be different political background, legal setup, or as you say, there can be difference in the organizational structure. Above all, the time zones, all these can come up as a challenge for the conduct of international business. So those are the topic for our class, today's class. Okay. So primarily, I have identified these are some of the major ones. Okay, 10 major challenges that can be faced by an international company or a company planning to go abroad or being operated in a foreign land. Okay, before operating in a foreign land itself, the company, the so-called company which is planning to go for business in a foreign land, they should understand the political setup and the legal affairs of that country, because political factor is a very important aspect contributing to the growth and promotion of international business. Suppose if within a country the company, the business of the company is not promoted, the government is against it, or maybe the government thinks that that is not good for the population of the country. In such cases, there can be a ban that can happen to this international corporation. So if there is a ban, then there is no choice for you. You have to think of other market. Or sometimes you might face a kind of demarketing from part of the political bodies within the company. That also may affect your business. So you really have to understand whether there is any such elements within that country for which you are planning for. So no, I have put one example, like Facebook and some of the social platforms, which are almost banned in many of the Arab countries and China. So that those companies cannot think of a business going over there, or planning for a business plan, because the political barrier has already been established in those countries. So that is one part. If it is a ban, then there is no choice. You have to avoid such companies. But then the second part is you really have to understand the political setup, the political agenda of the government when you are planning for a business in a particular nation. Because if the political agenda of the government is not favorable for your business, then it is better that you don't plan for that particular nation, because you have many other choices. Why should you take that heavy risk if the setup is like that in that country? Then legal differences. Of course, legal differences is a huge thing, because the law that is connected with establishment of companies, operation of business units, or maybe conduct of business, it can vary across different nations. And if a corporation is not aware with such legal matters, they might land up in huge problem, which can result in huge penalty for such companies. Many of the huge giants, multinational corporations have paid heavy fine because of lack of consideration for the legal aspect with respect to international operation in a country. So that is why companies need to take care of the legal differences. They have to adjust their operation in such a way that it is suitable to their the legal setup of that particular country. Sometimes the legal setup might be against the regular functioning of that company. In such a case, the company will have to devise a methodology, a methodology that will be suitable for operation, right? So certain cases, as I say, if it is a ban, it is a barrier. But if you're trying to understand and then place your business, maybe that can bring favorable business for your company. So that is first aspect, political and legal differences. Like in India also, we have certain barriers with respect to the political factors in our country. And the second factor which we are considering here is cultural differences. I really have read a recent article which has said, no, the how Starbucks, they had a big trouble with Australian community or Australian culture when they were trying to do their business over there. Like Starbucks is a coffee chain, and they are well accepted in many of the countries, including in India. But when they were trying to initially when they were trying to enter into Australian market, it was a huge difficulty, or they were in a huge difficulty, because people were accustomed to local cafes and they were preferring such coffee houses instead of big brands like Starbucks. So that was actually a cultural factor. They were used to having local cafes in the locality and accustomed to such culture. And Starbucks really had to break that to enter into that market. So that talks about the cultural differences. And of course, another type of culture is there is huge difference that you can see between the culture dominance in Japanese market and in Western market, like in US or Canada, because in Japanese market they are very strict regarding the etiquettes, the business etiquettes, which might be little different from what is practiced in US or other other Western countries like Canada. No, because the type of dealing which you can have with people, how you can arrange for a meeting, how you should deal with the discussion about your business proposal, all these will be different across the nation. So you really have to understand the culture, the behavior, and sometimes your behavior which is acceptable in your country may not be acceptable in a foreign land. So when you're dealing with people from different countries, we have to make sure that we learn the culture, we have learned their habits, and then talk to these people. And working culture, I have quoted an example of how the difficulty one can face when they're going with at a time when they have business with, suppose if you're from India and at a time you have business with US and Spain, it will be the working hours are totally different between US and Spain. So when you're dealing with your employees, you should have two different teams, two different or team who would be addressing to the requirements coming up from your Spain customers and US customers. You have to have different teams who will adjust their timing according to the demand coming up from those foreign land. In software company, you can see that they have different teams who will be addressing US clients, UK clients, Canada clients, and the as maybe from Scandinavian countries. So they are actually adjusting the team construction, team building in such a way that it is suitable to the working hours of different countries. So that is all is part of culture, and it can be managed if you are trying to understand and learn and try to adjust your teams accordingly. It's not that only the supervising or the administrative team have to know about the culture. Every employee in your company should be aware with the cultural differences when you're planning for an international operation. That's why many of the companies in the training program, they include this as etiquettes and training to adjust with the culture of an international market. And some of them, they even send their employees abroad to have one-to-one dealing with the foreign clients so that they get to know the culture differences in a better way. So that is one of the kind of barrier that can be faced by an international firm. Now, of course, economic differences, yes. when we are talking about an interest rate, we talk about an interest rate as a return from like 7 to maybe from 6 to 10%, whereas in some of the developed nations they discourage investment, so the interest rate starts from somewhere around 2 to 4%. Likewise, every economic indicators can be different across the nations. When I say a GDP, gross domestic development growth, gross domestic product or GDP or growth rate to be good at say 10%, it may not be appealing to many of the developing nations where they are aiming at a higher growth rate. So the economic differences can be a barrier if you are not trying to understand it, learn it, and keep a record of those, keep a track of those while you are dealing with your foreign clients. Of course, differences in the currency, we know that. And the problem which can arise in this is with respect to exchange rate. When we are dealing with dollar and rupee or yen and rupee, the conversion rate would be different and it would be fluctuating. So you really have to plan accordingly, devise a risk management strategy accordingly, depending on the differences in the currency unit. That can be another barrier which you can face when you're going with export or import, or maybe some kind of strategic alliance with a foreign land. Language barriers, it is actually a difficulty. I know when I was conducting a project on how exports happen in India, long back, not maybe 4 or 5 years before, I had some kind of, I had conducted some kind of interviews with different exporters in Kochi. I had met exporters who were exporting basically seafood and spices. And I had met them personally. I spoke with them just to understand how do they manage their business and all. One important factor they said is the language barrier. They said they give training to their employees with French, German, and some of them said they learned Chinese, Mandarin, and they give this training because often they find the most difficult thing in international business is the language barriers. Of course, some of them have already appointed this translators and all, but they say that it will be better if we can communicate directly without the help of a translator. So they learn different languages depending on the type of business they are doing. Most of them, they said the most important thing is language barrier, because there are things that are locally understood. Like the same language can be used in different sense in different countries. The same word can have different meaning when, say, different contextual meaning when it is applicable from the perspective of international market. So that is something, and you have to be very careful, it seems, because you may lose one customer just because you have used some language in an appropriate way, in an inappropriate way. Wrong placing of a word can cost you losing a client or maybe a business unit. So that is why they are very careful, it seems, with the language part. One aspect which they said during the, and they said that the language usage, as it happens in our country also, when you are with a professional big company and also when you are dealing with a local customer, same language can be applicable in a different way in these two contexts, when you're dealing with a local customer as well as when you're dealing with a professional chain business group. So that, yeah, I have put an example of Benz, Benzi, and Benji. Is an example of what Mercedes-Benz faced when they were entering into Chinese market. Initially, the company, this is a real thing. Initially, the company had gone with adopting Benzi, which is, I think the pronunciation is like that, Benzi, which resembles, which is very much similar to their key brand word Benz. But unfortunately, the meaning of that word in Mandarin was rushed to death. So the company faced severe problem because of that. Because will anyone buy a car if that means that you are towards your death when you enter into that car? It cannot happen. So the company later then converted that into Benji. I believe that's pronounced in that way. It's Mandarin, and it means that speed, or like they were showing up the power of the engine or something like that. They wanted to project that, so they changed that immediately. So this is an experience of a big multinational corporation who were entering into different markets. So likewise, even a name can mean different things when you enter into a market. So that also can be a challenge, right? For a company trying to enter. Coke, they had a lot of trouble with the coining of word in different, the tagline in different countries, because it meant differently in different cultures. So they used to alter it according to the need of that particular market. Then difference in marketing practices. Yes, no, many countries like developed nations and all, the customers from those countries does not like marketers going with personally entering into a communication with them and all. They don't like when they are being disturbed for selling a product. Mostly you have to fix an appointment, you have to get their permission before you go with marketing your products and all. Same way it happens in marketing research also, that I have experienced. Like if I want to conduct some kind of social research which involves people, what you have to get is you have to first get permission from the government body, uh, who gives us permission only after verifying the entire proposal, our questionnaire, the type of questions, all that, because they don't encourage their citizen being disturbed for the benefit of our research. Right. So likewise, we have to take care of the different marketing practices and the etiquettes that are connected with when you are entering into a market. This marketing practices happens with respect to your advertisement also. Your advertisement, the words you use, the concept you know, you try to project through your advertisement. Some companies, some countries, as you know, Fair and Lovely, Johnson and Johnson, all these big companies, they had huge problem in many of the countries when they were trying to use the sentimental attachment of people for marketing their product. The countries, Johnson and Johnson and all, they have been fined many times because of their advertising and the product quality. So when you go with such issues like how to market, what are the words, how to communicate, all these things would be a challenge for an international company, and your practice should go with what is being promoted or what is being accepted in a particular locality. So that with respect to marketing practices and trade restrictions, that we know that, right? In India also, we don't allow all countries to come up and sell whatever they want. I said the example of dumping, right? So the market trade restrictions would be there. Sometimes we don't go with importing certain items just to protect the local markets. So all these factors will have to be taken care when we go with the international market. Some markets, at times they don't accept, like seafood industry. I said about my experience. So they say sometimes they are very, very strict regarding the export of seafood to the country. When they get a news that there is some kind of pollution happening or some kind of like safety or security aspect related with water quality, these countries will not accept exports from those regions, it seems. So that is another major challenges they face when they are into the seafood industry. So they might go with exporting from importing from some other country. So trade restrictions again is a barrier, and international company or an international chain needs to take care, and they should look into that they are having a good trade relationship with the country with which they are having their international business. The regulatory bodies like IMF, which we have yet to learn, International Monetary Fund, and as we say, the the trade, like WTO, World Trade Organization, all these come up with different restrictions, regulations at time. Now, COVID pandemic, there are a lot of trade restrictions that has happened between different nations. India is having a severe problem because of the high rate of the high test rate of this COVID-19. And these things are affecting, these things can affect the international trade, which are beyond the control of the parties who are directly involved in this business. So these are some of the trade restrictions. Now, another one is transportation and cost. It is very evident now. Now, many of the ports are closed because of pandemic. So, these exporters, I have read some of the recent articles where they say that instead of traveling directly to a port, they have to cross 10 to 12 ports to reach a destination because some of the ports are closed, right? And some of their items are being shipped in another port temporarily because the real destination is closed for some time. And some of their items are spoiled because they took a longer route. So all these are affecting the transportation cost also. And many of these are unpredictable conditions when you are talking about an international business. So these all can be problem, like if there is a war or if there is political some kind of uncertainty in a particular country, in a location, that all can affect your transportation, the export of those products on time. Maybe you are not able to deliver that on time because of these issues which are beyond your control. All these can be challenges that are faced by the transportation, by the international players. And last, I said impact of domestic business. Yes, sometimes the local customers or domestic market can go against going for international imports, because they find that it's a threat to the local market. The market is flooded with many items, so they are not able to compete with such high standard. But all these can be some of the challenges which these firms who are trying to import into a country may face. See, earlier, initially, when India opened up our gates for international trade, this was one of the major problems. Almost all the domestic sector went into a huge strike, saying that this will have, especially the kirana shops and the local markets. They said this is going to affect their business. This is going to affect the sales, all these. And it was temporary because everyone has their own place in a particular country, because there are market for it, especially in a country like India, there are markets for each of these different business units. Its only thing is that you have to place which is the right one for your business, of course. But still, if there is issue with the availability of products and all, governments and the trade regulatory authorities, they take care of such aspects and protect the domestic business so that the domestic economy is not harmed because of international business. But these are some of the challenges that may be faced by an international firm. And the last one is company structure and accounting. Accounting adaptation to an international standard was one of the major problems faced by Indian companies at the beginning stage, like international accounting standards and all. Now system has come up to a long way where we have softwares which has already taken care of this preparation of accounts in Indian, according to the Indian standards and according to the international standards. General account, GAAP. Earlier, Infosys, in their annual report, you could find the one which is prepared as per Indian GAAP and the one prepared as per US GAAP. But now things are much better, but still, if you're new to that, it might be like a problem for you, one of the barrier for you to have to go with easy process of internationalization. And company structure, yes, this is another aspect. If your expansion is huge, if you are aiming at different markets, then definitely you have to plan your company structure. As I said, no, starting with the time zone would have to be planned well. Team building has to be planned. Team formation has to be planned. The structure of the company, like, are you planning to operate separate companies in each market, or are you deciding to have one central nodal office which would be controlling the operations in different locations? So all these things needs to be fixed, and any delicacy or any problem with the formation of company structure can affect your international business. So all these are some of the aspects, some of the challenges that could be faced, especially when you're very new to the international business. And there are, apart from that, there are many other aspects which might be unique to the products and services which you are dealing with. Sometimes if you are dealing with tobacco products, or sometimes if you are dealing with drugs, which are, I'm not saying that drugs, I'm referring to drugs which are used in medicine. Some drugs might be banned in certain countries. So all those you have to take care when you are planning for a market entry. Like some of the drugs which are banned in India, and which are banned in US. Some Indian companies might be using that, and when they are trying to export a product to US market, they might land up in a huge problem if they are not trying to manage it themselves, right? The country will not accept their proposal because that's already banned in their country. So likewise, we need to take care, like the agriculture products. We had a huge problem with export of agriculture products from our country to developed markets. The pesticide rates was very high for the products, some of the farm produce from our country. So none of them were getting accepted because of the rate of pesticide that is being used for farming these products. And now we are trying to manage it. Now we are going with the organic production. The use of pesticide is minimized. The government is controlling that. We are actually popularizing with use of organic manure and pesticides, all these for the crop cultivation, which has improved our exports to these countries. So all these things need to be taken care when you go with the international business. Now, finally, I would like to conclude by making a comparison between globalization and internationalization. How do you link this? Globalization is a macro perspective. When you're trying to link globalization with international business, globalization can be from the perspective of a country. But when we are talking about an international business, it should be aimed from the angle of a firm or a business organization or business group, because you have to plan your strategies in such a way that it will be easy for you to enter into a market. So there is some kind of customization that is happening at your end to promote the concept of globalization through international business. Right. Any type of linkage, any type of connections between two countries, people of two nations, citizens of two nations can be brought under the concept of globalization. But when you're talking about international business, that's more customized. You are definitely aiming at certain markets or certain products or certain service or maybe certain kind of dealing between the two countries. It's not a macro perspective. You have to plan, you have to design, you have to get approval, you have to constantly update with your dealings that is happening. There are certain rules and regulations that would be guiding your modus operandi with respect to international business. So that's little more channelized to what it is. What are you trying to do under the broad concept of globalization? So that's how we link globalization to international business. We started our discussion starting with what is globalization. Then we slowly moved into different types of globalization, where we discussed about international business, the ways of entering a market, the different types of projects or strategic alliances that can be created under the broad theme of international business. And today we discussed about the challenges. So the link is like this. Globalization is a macro perspective. In that, one element can be international business, right? That's how, because there, when you're thinking about an international business, you really have to think on how to mitigate the plan and how to implement it and how to go on with it, right? Which requires a lot of effort from your side. So that's where our introduction to the first part of international business, right? In our next class, we would be going with the different environmental factors, or as we say, no, the external and internal environment, which are connected with international business, right? So